second from Ms. Silvero. So we'll hold that nomination and see if there are any other nominations for a slate of officers. Are there any other nominations for a slate of officers? Are there any other nominations for a slate of officers? So a nomination for the slate of officers has been made. Nominations are closed. I would ask for a vote on the nomination of the slate of officers. Roll call vote, if we could. So I'll start with Mr. Branson on Mr. Williamson's motion, which was made and seconded.
Aye.
Mr. Howell?
Aye.
Ms. Silverio?
Aye.
Ms. Newman?
Aye.
President Stevens?
Aye.
Ms. Fox?
Aye.
Mr. Mahinga, who is absent. Mr. Williamson?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
The motion carries by unanimous vote. Congratulations to the slate of officers under election.
Thank you. We will move to items 1.4, superintendent update. Superintendent.
Thank you much. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening. I'm excited at the moment to share that last week I was recognized and received the Family Engagement Changemaker Award from a School of Superintendents and Association. This was a national award. Let's say that again, a national award. And it's a great honor for our district. We were one of 3 acknowledged out of 50 nominees. We were recognized for implementing the exemplary best practices, integrating family engagement across strategic planning, budgeting, and district infrastructure. We had the honor for accepting this award. It was a great honor. But I also want to recognize a group of individuals because this belongs to everyone. But I really want to recognize the Office of Family and Community Engagement, which is our FACE office. Karina Pinto de Chacon, Chief of Family of FACE, Janet Pichardo, Executive Director of FACE, and their entire staff. They all deserve a big round of applause for all of our work. For example, we have grown our parents, our community, and student advisory boards. And we have reduced chronic absenteeism by more than 28 percentage points. This award recognizes our parents, our community members, our school board, and many more. It honors the fact that it takes a village to raise a child. This work cannot be done alone. On another note, we have conducted a mid-year assessment that you will hear from Dr. Dillon later on tonight about these assessments and how they inform the school board goals and guardrails. In addition, you will hear from Dr. Carreno from RIDE about our facility progress. As you know, we have opened 4 new or like new schools, and we have 6 which are currently under construction. Our goal almost 5 years ago was to have 100% of our students in new or like new facilities by 2030. 5 years ago, we only had 5% of our students in a new or like new facility. I'm happy to announce that we're nearly 50% plus in new or like new facilities. And we are well on our way to meeting our goal for 2020. Our students deserve that and then some. I would also like to remind all of our families, our staff, our students, that survey work is underway. We hear from our parents and our educators, staff, and students. We understand when they take the survey, each of them that reach out to us gives us feedback on how our schools and our district can continue to improve. I am your first cheerleader out there saying the great work that we're doing in Providence. 5 years ago, I said Providence become the destination of education. Many people looked at me with a smirk. Guess what? I'm smirking back. Because I know the power that we have with our teachers and our educators and our students and our parents and the school board and all of us when we come together. There isn't anything that we can't accomplish as long as we do it together. So I encourage all my families, my teachers, my administrators, and our students to please take the time to fill the survey works out, because that is how we continue to gain information and apply the work that we need to do to continue improving our district. Thank you. Passing it.
Thank you, Superintendent Montañez. We're going to move to items 1.5, Board President remarks. And first, let me thank my colleagues for once again entrusting me with the responsibility of serving as president for the second consecutive year. I am honored by your confidence, and I am grateful for the partnership we have built. When we look back just 1 year ago, the difference is very clear. This is not the same board. We committed ourselves to growth. We invested in professional development. We held more than 20 community listening sessions, not because we had to, but because the people of Providence deserve to be heard. And from those conversations, we established clear goals and guardrails that has anchored our work and has defined accountability. Were we perfect? No. But progress is not about perfection. It is about persistence. It is about showing up, doing the work, and staying focused on why we are here, which is for the children of Providence. Let me be clear about one thing. There will always be those who question us, those who assume unity is temporary, those who predict we will lose focus. And yes, questions have been raised about our qualifications in ways that have not always been raised before. But we are not defined by doubt. We're defined by how we respond. And we respond with preparation, we respond with professionalism, and we respond with results. And when the time comes to govern, we will govern, not with ego, not with anger, but with clarity, competence, and courage. Because leadership is not about silencing critics, it is about delivering results. I also want to congratulate Vice President Newman and Secretary Fonts for continuing to serve alongside me. I am not perfect, and if anyone knows that, it's them. They see the long meetings, the tough calls, the conversations behind the scenes, and they have never hesitated to challenge me when needed. And we are not a leadership team where one's voice becomes law. We believe in healthy dialogue. We believe in respectful disagreement. We believe in strong ideas that will be sharpened through honest conversation. Because of that, as a board, our decisions are stronger, our oversight is sharper, and our focus remains exactly where it belongs, which is on students. As we begin the new year, we must be intentional about our structure. Structures is not symbolic. Structures determines whether we are disciplined in our work, clear in our roles, and aligned in our focus. With recent changes to our bylaws, establishing vice chairs, the addition of a new member, and involving priorities before the board, this is an appropriate moment for us to reflect on the work ahead. For that reason, I will conduct an annual reorganization of our standing committees. But let me be clear, all current standing chairs will remain in leadership roles. Just want to be clear about that. But I will be reaching out to each member about committee assignments, and also will be sending some more updates as it pertains to retreats moving forward. With that said, I would love to formally welcome Mr. Andrew Bramson, who has been appointed by Mayor Smiley and confirmed by the council. Board Member Branson, welcome to the Providence School Board. And to the responsibility that comes with serving this community. There are some core governance principles, and I'm speaking to everyone, that I value, that I share with people from the city council, superintendent, board members, state officials, as it pertains to service on the board. And that is that we are entrusted with the education of a predominantly minority community who rely on us to lead with integrity, focus, and unity. As a former graduate of PPSD and a male of color, this responsibility for me is serious. Board members are not here to undermine one another. We're not here to create internal conflicts, nor to advance personal or political interests of others. We're here to govern responsibly, collaboratively, and with an unwavering focus on student outcomes. We have one job, and that job, board, is to ensure improved outcomes for all students. The board governs as one body. We deliberate together, we decide together, and once decisions are made, we move forward together. We also understand something fundamental. Student outcomes do not change unless adult behaviors change. Last year, this board made intentional shifts in how we operate, how we collaborate, how we communicate, and how we hold ourselves accountable. That work strengthened us, and that standard will remain. And I'm hopeful that all of us will share the same values. As I close, I want to lift up two major priorities that I believe should guide our work this year. First is student outcomes, as we know. Our most important priority is simple: student outcomes. We've gotten training on that, and I definitely agree. School districts exist to educate children. We exist to ensure results. That means outcomes, not politics, not distractions, or even noise. Everything we do must center improving measurable results for students, supporting the superintendent and his team. We will continue to monitor our goals and guardrails with discipline and transparency. We will continue to update and get updates and continue updating our community on the progress ahead. And we will continue supporting the superintendent in producing measurable results, because accountability and support go hand in hand. Our students deserve a quality education here in Providence, and this board will remain focused on ensuring that happens. Priority 2, return to local control. Last year, this board chose not to take a formal stance on returning to local control. 60% of the board was new, and we focused first on training and governance. We completed more than 50 hours of professional development, that is a lot, and strengthening our understanding on our statutory role. Tonight, we will move to vote on whether the Providence Public Schools should return to local control on July 1st of this year. If the vote is yes, we will begin discussing the possibility of an ad hoc committee for return. We'll talk about that when we get to the item. When schools return, governing authority shifts from the council on elementary and secondary education and the commissioner back to the board. Others have debated the return and when it should return. There's legislation out. There's a possibility that the governor will return the schools with the commissioner. But the body charged by law with governing has not formally spoken regarding this in 2 years. Tonight that changes, and I personally believe that Providence schools should return in full this year. Lastly, tonight we will hear a key presentation on school facilities. After visiting Spaziano and William debate with Governor McKee last Tuesday, I was reminded that facilities are not just about buildings. They are about dignity, they are about safety, and they are about respect for our students and for the communities we serve. The governor shared that as the transition of local control is expected to take place at some point this year, and he told me to communicate that, this facilities plan represents an important component of that transition. One piece of the puzzle. It's a big piece. This evening, RIDE will present. Board members will have the opportunity to ask questions, offer feedback, and engage thoughtfully in the discussion. Next month, this item will return to the board for a formal consideration and vote. As with all matters connected to the return to local control, the board will follow its established governance process. Items are reviewed publicly, discussed openly, and acted upon formally through a vote of this body. Nothing is considered binding upon return unless the board votes for it. So everything that pertains to the return will come before this body or will not be binding. There is important work ahead, and I'm confident in this board's ability to approach it with focus, unity, and a shared commitment to doing what is in the best interests of our students and families. Thank you. Appreciate that. Now we're going to move to items 2.1, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Motion's been made by Vice President Newman. Do I have a second? Second's been made by Chairman Jones. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Any abstentions? The motion passes. We will be moving to items 3.1, public comment, right to be heard. I'm going to turn it over to the Madam Clerk to call up the speakers, and each speaker has 2 minutes to speak. And please state your name for the record.
Shannon McLeod.
Hey, Shannon.
Hey.
Please state your name for the record, and you have 2 minutes. You can actually sit if you want to.
You'll still be able to see me?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm with teenagers all day. I'm used to being roasted, so. Oh, okay. Oh, that makes sense. How's that better? All right. My name is Shannon McLeod. I'm here tonight as the Vice President of High Schools for the PTU. Before tonight's meeting, I did speak with delegates and members regarding concerns, and one thing came up, platforms, because apparently we really love platforms here at PPSD. The one that came up the most that teachers want me to talk about is Canvas. So we're using Canvas as a grading system and an LMS, the learning system. So you know, like when you were in school, you used Google Classroom. About 2 weeks before school started, we were told no more Google Classroom, even though the kids all have Google emails, and we have to use everything through Canvas. So after panicking, the district did help provide us with 45 minutes of training on how to use it as a learning system, which teachers had lots of complaints about. They still do. I still can't organize all their notes about them, so I'm going to talk about the grading issues with it. The issues with Canvas as a grade book, at least from the high school point of view, it is not fair to our kids. By that I mean we have this cumulative grading now. So I have a student actually in one of my classes. He failed quarter one and passed quarter two with a B, but because of cumulative grading, he still has an F for the year, which is weird. So why does he want to still come to school? I'm not sure, but he's trying. And with Canvas, so for me to like regrade his stuff in quarter one, I have to change the grade in Canvas. Then I have to go to Skyward because quarter one is over, and I have to request a grade change. Then I have to say why I want the grade change, find whatever, and then change it in Skyward, and then close it out. So now we're using 2 gradebook systems if we're going to continue with the policy of students can hand things in at the teacher's discretion whenever. So, which I think is a great policy, but Canvas doesn't work for that. Also, Skyward needs to be at 100% when you do your grades. So your categories, like let's say this is 20, this is 20, this is 10, whatever, has to add up to 100. Because the district preloaded our categories, nothing's adding up to 100. So for example, every quarter we have a category called final exam and midterms, which if you know, we don't give those every quarter. So there's 10% that will never be calculated into the grade. So Skyward takes that 10% and distributes it to different categories. Some teachers, a lot of teachers didn't know this was going to happen. So first quarter used 2 categories. So their summatives, which were supposed to be worth 30%, now are worth 60% for these kids because Skyward and Canvas don't like each other. They're not pals, they're not bros, they don't talk to each other very well. We don't understand why we're using 2 grade books because we always have to continually look at Canvas, make sure it's matching up with Skyward. And we don't send transcripts out through Canvas, we send them through Skyward. So also another thing that Canvas doesn't do, it doesn't tell us when kids are in. So like, let's say Tyrell, you're in my class. Oh, sorry. Oh God.
I don't think she heard you.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Just finish up your comment.
So let's say like you're out of my class on Wednesday and I'm going to grade the work on Wednesday. Normally as a teacher, if you're out, I'm going to skip you. I'm not going to give you a failing grade for not handing in, giving you time to do it. We don't know if kids are out for a day in Canvas. They're all there all the time. There's a lot of other issues with it, but I did promise teachers I'd come and talk about Canvas. Sorry that my thoughts are scattered.
Thank you,
Your
Shannon.
thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you.
Carol Pagano.
Hey, Carol.
Hi, how are you?
Good. You have 2 minutes. Can you please state your name for the record?
Thank you. Yes, my name is Carol Fagan. I wear many hats in this district. I'm an instructional coach. I'm a parent. I'm a Providence resident. I'm the VP at large of the union, but today I am coming as a teacher at the Leviton Dual Language School. My name is Carol Pagan, and I'm an instructional coach at Leviton Dual Language School. Leviton is the highest achieving dual language school in our district. For over 20 years, our students have benefited from exceptional teachers, a clean and beautiful building, outstanding principals, one who's sitting right there, who work tirelessly to support our community. Our families are engaged, our students are thriving, and we are proud of what we are accomplishing every single day at Leviton. However, there's one thing that we have never had in those 20 years, a playground. To my knowledge, we're the only elementary school in the district without access to either a city park or a school playground. By federal guidelines, we provide our students with 20 minutes of recess daily. Yet our students spend that time playing at asphalt surrounded by cinder blocks. Over the years, this has resulted in countless bumps, scrapes, cuts, splinters, and beyond the injuries, it sends a message that our students can succeed academically at the highest levels, but they're entitled to the same safe, joyful spaces as the other children in the district. For the 4 years that I've worked at Leviton, I have heard repeated promises that a playground is pending. My question is, pending what? Our students cannot continue to wait. They deserve a playground. Our PTO has raised serious concerns about the lack of gates around Greenwich Avenue, where cars regularly speed past during the arrival and dismissal time. The absence of both a playground and an adequate safety barrier creates an environment that is not equitable and not safe. It is inherently inequitable that our elementary students are expected to have daily recess without a safe space designed for children. Our students, families, principal, and staff are not asking for anything extraordinary. We're asking that every elementary school should have a safe place to play. We respectfully urge the board to give us this matter attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Patrick Shelton. Patrick Shelton.
He's not here.
He's not here.
Yeah. Amelia Tatarian.
Hey, Amelia.
Hi. Before I start, I'm sorry, I didn't know it was a 2-minute limit. I'm gonna do my best to summarize certain parts.
All is
Okay.
well. Please state your name for the record.
Okay, my name is Amelia Tatarian. I'm the math department teacher leader at JSEC. I teach Algebra 2 and AP Pre-Calc. It's my 3rd year at JSEC, and I've been teaching for 11 years overall. This year, it feels like quality instructional time is at an all-time low due to district mandated assessments and interventions. So my goal today is to advocate for reducing the time spent on common assessments and other district mandated items to improve student learning and experiences in our school. So a junior at JSEC would take the following tests in a year. A simulation of the SAT in September, the actual PSAT in October, a 2-part midterm in January, 2 more SAT simulations in different months, access testing for over 50% of our students, SAT in March, and then 9 illustrative math unit assessments interspersed throughout the year on Canvas. We also this year have added interventions, 45 minutes a week of con, and our unit schedules have not shifted with these mandates. The ratio of actual instructional time to testing I calculated is about 6-to-1, and chronically absent students skew to have a higher proportion of testing, as well as MLLs who have access testing. I summed up all this research that I'm not going to be able to get through, but kind of the point is that research actually shows that the frequency of standardized bigger tests doesn't really improve student learning, but the frequency of lower stakes assessments does improve student attention and skills, but it's harder to give those when we have so many actual assessments that we're required to give. So I kind of can't give as many of my own more useful assessments. Students' experiences in school is like not ideal. I'm gonna read my last paragraph. I know I'm about to run out of time. So as a math teacher, I'm asking you to reduce the proportion of school time spent on mandated assessments and interventions and involve math teacher leaders in determining a more appropriate compromise by removing, shortening, or editing some of our mandated exams, as well as just giving a bit more flexibility in the unit schedule so that we can have more quality time and purposeful intervention to benefit the learning of and well-being of students and teachers alike. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, and tell Ariana I said hi.
I
okay?
will. She
Thank you.
endorsed this, by the way. She wanted me
that's
to tell
good.
you guys.
All right. Thank you.
Laura Stagno.
Loris.
Clarice.
Larice, oh, my apologies. Yes, please state your name for the record. You have 2
Larice.
minutes.
Clarice Dano. I am a school counselor at Nathaniel Green Middle School, and I'm here to summarize some key concerns that my team of school counselors and I heard after talking with families and students about the grading policy that was implemented this year. We're seeing an increase in pressure and stress from the students because if they started out the year not the way they intended, from illness, from adjusting to a new school, especially our 6th graders, language barriers, personal and family emergencies. If they started off not strong and they made a comeback this second half of the year, their grade is still, like one of the other speakers spoke about, their cumulative average is not where it should be. It's starting to discourage students, unmotivate students, disengage students, and they're putting in lower effort because I think they feel like I did what you said, Ms. Dano, and it didn't work. We're preaching in my office after Q1, I'm pulling all my D and F students that got those grades in certain courses. I'm making a very detailed plan with them and their family. I'm telling them that we have plenty of time, you got this. And then they did that and it didn't work. They got an A in Q2, but they started off poor and they're still at a C-. This is really concerning for my 8th graders that are applying to high schools. So we've heard a lot of stress about this.
30 seconds.
There's so many other ones. They're being weighed down by their early performance. It's going against, again, what we're trying to teach the students to do. I don't know if the students, they're trying to get the grades, they're not always trying to master at this point because they're trying just to get a better grade because that's what they're driven by. They want to see results in that way, and that's how they've been brought up to see.
Time.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We are going to move to the consent agenda, which is items 4.1, approval of the minutes from January 28th, 2026. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion's been made by Chairman Jones. Do I have a second? Second's been made by Vice President Newman. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Any abstentions?
I'll be abstaining.
Motion passes. We will be moving to items 5.1, motion/discussion and vote on resolution by the board to support legislation that would nullify the extension issued by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education that maintains the commissioner's control over PPSD until October 15, 2025. Such legislation to become effective July 1st, 2026. We are going to have a discussion. 27. Yes, my apologies. Until October 15, 2027, such legislation to become effective July 1st, 2026. Do I have a motion to approve items 5.1? Motion. Motion's been made by Chairman Jones. Do I have a second? Second's been made by Vice President Newman. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Any abstentions? The motion passes. We're going to move to items 5.2, which we will discuss after we have a motion and a second, and I will hand it over to Vice President Newman. But the items 5.2, motion/discussion and vote on establishment of a board ad hoc transition committee, which shall advise the board in coordinating, overseeing, and facilitating the return of the Providence Public School Department to board governance, local control. Do I have a motion to approve items 5.2?
So moved.
Motion's been made by Board Member Branson. Do I have a second? Second's been made by Dr. Williamson. Any discussion? Chairman Jones. Oh, well, 1 second. Vice President Newman, can you please explain it first, and then I'll get your question right after.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Since the state of Rhode Island assumed control of Providence Public Schools in 2019, following the Johns Hopkins review that identified systemic governance and operational failures, the pathway back to local control has required not only academic progress, but demonstrated governance capacity and a codified transition plan. Over the past 2 years, the Commissioner and the Council on Elementary and Secondary Education have repeatedly directed local stakeholders to develop a clear, comprehensive transition framework that defines roles, strengthens collaboration, and incorporates meaningful community input. As the Commissioner has emphasized, when PPSD returns to local control, it returns to the Providence School Board. The establishment of a board transition committee is therefore not optional, but a core governance responsibility. Under the board's revised bylaws, the president may establish a special committee and issue a written charge outlining purpose, scope, membership, and deliverables, ensuring that work proceeds in a structured and accountable manner. Doing so will align transition planning with the board's adopted goals and guardrails and demonstrate to the council, the city, the community that Providence is prepared to responsibly govern its schools upon return to local control.
Chairman Jones?
Yeah, I was just curious, maybe I missed it when I was reading it, or maybe we're going to discuss what the committee will look like how many members, or if there's any idea on, what that's gonna look like.
That's a good question. I was speaking to Chairwoman Severa about it a little bit earlier today, and we have a retreat coming up. And I think it makes sense for us as a board to put our heads together and actually design that process collectively, instead of that just being me just sort of establishing something or the leadership team establishing something. We have ideas. We'll bring the ideas to the meeting, but the structure of it, I think we should all have a discussion on.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Anything you want to add, Vice President?
No, I think just that it's time. It's time. Return to local control is imminent. It's upon us. And what we don't have yet is a clear transition plan. We have stakeholders working on a number of different in different areas, from operations, governance. There's been community listening, both at the board level, at the city level, the district level, but we still have yet to. We don't have a coordinated plan yet. And if we want the schools back, that is necessary. And we feel that the school board is the primary body, the governing body that should be accountable for not only designing, but making decisions and bringing stakeholders to the table to make sure that we have a thoughtful plan that is going to operationalize everything that we know needs to happen to not only get the schools back, but to keep them and maintain them and sustain the progress that we've seen in the last few years.
And I think I'll add, we've had a meeting, I'm just going to say with the governor, and I kind of felt, I felt me personally embarrassed when I spoke with the governor. He says, okay, well, what is the board's plan? What is the board's plan? What is it going to look like when it goes back? And I know it's a collective thing. There's a lot of different, stakeholders that is involved in this. But I think that it is time for the board to discuss what is our plan, and when the governor mentioned that, I was like, you are absolutely correct. So I think it's time, as everyone says, we are the governing body. We work collaboratively with a lot of different stakeholders who will also be involved in this and will not be excluded out of it. But I think that there's a process where we could really bring key information before the board so we are well aware. I'm always talking to Dr. Williamson, and he has just some amazing questions that I think we could get answered if we had an ad hoc committee on the return to local control. And it's basic information. It's not anything too concrete. It's not something that it's not something that is so complicated. I am aware that there are a lot of different groups currently taking place, but I think that when we begin to talk about like the facilities presentation on today and that coming back for a vote, when we're talking about different governance structures, how things are going to be ran, we as a board should have a clear understanding. And we're a part of, me, Vice President Newman and Secretary Fonts, Superintendent and Mayor's Office, is a part of the collaborative working group with the with RIDE. And there's a lot of great things that take place there, but I think it's really time for the board to really get updated on what this looks like. And if that's even us taking information from the collaborative working group and bringing it to this ad hoc committee, I think that would be beneficial as well. But as it pertains to the structure and the work, I think I have ideas. I know Vice President Newman, Secretary Fonts have ideas, and I know all of you have ideas. But I just think it's appropriate that we vote to establish it, but then work on exactly how that's going to work and make sure that we are, at our retreat, and make sure that we are all on the same page for when we move this work forward. Vice President.
Yeah, and I think it's absolutely not to discount the work that's happening, right? It is to create a container around it though, so that way it's transparent and visible to community. Right now, so much of the work, which is necessary, and I don't blame anyone for getting the work going, it needs to happen. But the issue is, I think community doesn't know, community does not know what's happening. People are like, what's the plan? What is the plan? And it's hard to sometimes give good answers about that because we don't have a clear and transparent structure that holds up and discusses publicly what that plan is going to be. For the last year, the board, we all know we were a part of it. We focused on professional development, goals and guardrails, and I think establishing relationships with the other stakeholders. But I do feel that it is absolutely time for us to take accountability to make sure that all of the transition conversations and ideas and needs are integrated into a cohesive plan that has a timeline and that is transparent, that community can ask us about.
Any other questions? I'll add one last thing. The last thing I'll add as well is, we are going to have, or we do have, so like I said, we have the collaborative working group, which is with RIDE, key stakeholders in that group. I believe there's going to be some development of something within that group sometime soon. We have the mayor's plan, and I know also the council may be doing something. I just think that a lot of that work that has taken place, I think some of that vetting of what has been done as well could go through this ad hoc committee, and us as a board can begin to look at some of the recommendations and be like, okay, well, we like this. We may not like this. We can come to the middle as it pertains to this. I think that is where I am thinking, where it can be best productive. But I do know what the law says, and things cannot go into effect unless the board is in agreement and the board takes a vote on it. So I just want to make sure we're listening to key stakeholders, what key stakeholders have already came up with, the ideas they've came up with. If we have ideas, coming up with them. But then, really looking at it and possibly really affirming this return to local control. So that's what I'm thinking. And we can talk more during the retreat. But I'm not going to prolong the item. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Any abstentions? The motion passes. We're going to move to item 6.1, middle of the year assessment data presentation. The district will be coming up. I believe Dr. Dillon
And Dr. Keegan.
and Dr. Keegan. How are both of you on today?
Well, how are you?
I am well. All right, whenever you're ready, you can begin.
Perfect. Okay. So tonight we are going to present to you where our students are performing at the middle of the year and progress toward end of year goals. So just as a reminder, our overarching goal is to increase the percentage of schools that are achieving a 3-star school from 19% to 33%. And in order to do that, We really need to ensure that our high-quality curriculum and it is happening and the instruction is happening with integrity, that we're engaging in progress monitoring so we know what's working or where we need to intervene, that we are providing universal design for learning, as well as expanding opportunities for post-secondary options through our college and career pathways.
Dr. Dillon, I'm sorry, are you able to turn the microphone on?
Oh, I thought it was, I'm sorry.
Could be.
Is it working now?
That's better, thank you so much.
Do the singer thing. Better, all right. So we have created a progress monitoring chart for you, just so you know where we are with each of the goals. If we've already met the end of year goal, it's green. If we're on track to meet the end of year goal, it's yellow. If we're approaching but a little bit further away, orange. And then if we are completely off track, it's red. And if we don't have data available, it's white. So just help navigate the slides. For our academic, for our academic achievement goal update, we are tying in directly to the school board goals. So the percent of grade 3 students who score proficient on the RICAS ELA will increase for 24% in June 2025 to 50% by June 2030. The percent of students in grade 4 who are proficient in math will increase from 23.6% in May of 2025 to 36% in May 2030 in grade 4. And then the percent of 8th grade students who score proficient on RICAS ELA will increase from 15.9% to 25%. Now, keep in mind, these are the school board goals. At the same time, the district is also monitoring how our students are making progress in all grades, in all areas. So we'll also talk about that. And we are increasing the number of opportunities for CTE programs across the district. And for that, we are trying to ensure that we're increasing the number of students who are earning their industry credentials through the exam that goes along with those CTE programs. Okay, so let's talk about ELA and math proficiency. So we'll start with ELA proficiency. Where you see the little purple stars, those are the school board goals, and that's why those stars are there, just to help you determine that. We have last year's mid-year compared to this year's mid-year for each of the grades. And so it's important to look at 2 parts, especially of each of the grades. So we want to see the green increasing and the red decreasing in the second column of each grade. That's what we're looking for, right? So for example, if you were to look at grade 3, we are almost nearly the same number or percentage of students who are meeting and exceeding in grade 3 this time of year as they were last year. However, we have decreased the number of students who are 3 more years below by 1%. So that's how to read each of the grade levels. Okay, you can see that there are increases in many of the grades, and we're going to talk about that more specifically. But I want to bring up a notable change, which is grade 7. Leading into that grade 8 year, which is the focus area for the school board. So if you could see last year at this time, grade 7 was 15% meeting proficiency. And at this time, the same time of year, we're at 22%. I'm sorry, the numbers are really tiny. And we are also decreasing the number of students who are 3 years below grade level. So moving in a positive direction. The reason why I am calling out middle school specifically is because we've had many conversations about our persistent need to improve and increase our performance in the middle grades. And so I want to show that specifically tonight. But I'll give you a minute to look across the grades. What does this mean? It means, as of right now, we're seeing year-over proficiency increasing with the number of students at or above grade level across the board, on average, increasing from last year. We're also seeing growth, which we'll talk about later, in several student groups. And our priority schools, those schools that were not meeting their goals for student proficiency in math and ELA, are showing progress, especially in the middle schools, and we'll talk more about the middle schools in a little bit. We have moved to teaming and win block in the middle schools, and we're seeing positive impacts on student growth using those models. Prior to this year, Green was the primary middle school using the model, and we've adopted it across the district. We are going to continue to strengthen our Tier 1 literacy instruction with an emphasis on several areas that have been showing as needs. Complex text engagement, writing about what they're reading, and structured lesson internalization, as well as the vocabulary work that we talked about last time. We're expanding targeted literacy interventions for students who are significantly below grade level, and we're maintaining frequent progress monitoring on students because that's how we know where we need to intervene or accelerate. It's really important to think about this work and how are we measuring it and what are we looking at. So we're measuring it and looking at it in multiple ways. We are doing classroom walkthroughs with the building leaders and the building instructors. So we're seeing instruction in action. We are using our curriculum in order to give common measures in order to see how our students are doing on their curriculum measures. And then we're using standardized assessment check-ins such as iReady and literacy.
Can you explain for some individuals, win block and teaming?
Sure. WinBlock is it's the acronym for what I need. So for some students that might be acceleration. They're ready for moving faster. They're ready for enrichment. Or for some students it might be intervention. It is also an opportunity for students who need additional English language development, ELD. Some students might have ELD during WinBlock in the elementary. At the middle school, it's a standalone class, but in the elementary, they have walk to ELD during a portion of the day for students that require it. Teaming means that there are 4 core teachers that students share. Around 125 students will share those 4 teachers. And so the students have the same 4 teachers for math, ELA, science, and social studies. The benefit of this is that when the teachers come together for common planning time, they're all talking and looking at the data for the same students. And they're able to see, so the students are doing well in science, but not in math. What's happening different in those classes that we might be able to learn from each other and provide different strategies so that they're successful across all of the different courses. And it builds a team, a small kind of school within a school, because we know from social emotional learning and literature that students that have smaller learning environments and a smaller focus in school feel a greater sense of belonging. So the teaming helps both with the academics, but it also, and teacher common planning time, but it also helps with the social emotional aspects. So this is just a summary slide where we have grade 3 literacy showing gradual improvement from last year. We have grade 8 demonstrating stabilization. And we have both grades continuing to reflect system-wide literacy priorities that are tied to early foundational skills that we need to continue to go back to and bolster. So if you recall, under the grade 3 literacy, we talked about the need to really focus in grade 2 in order to be able to support the grade 3 students in getting to that foundational level. And so that's what we're looking at here. So we need to continue to do that. Vocabulary continues to be a consistent need across all of our grades, where if we are to build that fluency with vocabulary, that acquisition of vocabulary, that's going to support both writing and reading, and students are going to perform better across the curriculum as that vocabulary increases. Here is our math slide, and you can see the purple dot, that's grade 4, which is where the school board is focusing for their goals. So you can see last year we were at 24% proficient at this time of year. And this year you can see that we've increased that to 26%, while also decreasing the number of students who were 3 years or below. Look again at grade 7, just because we have constantly talked about a need to start to bolster and accelerate performance at the middle levels. And you can see, again, the major improvement that we had in proficiency from last year to this year in grade 7. So moving up to 20% for grade 7 proficiency. But I'll give you a minute to look at the proficiency across the board. Moving on to our indicator of increasing proficiency in K-9 math. We are seeing proficiency increasing year over year with a small rise in students at or above the grade level. Last year and in previous years, Providence really focused on growth. And this year we are looking at the school goals from 2 lenses. One is proficiency and one is growth, because we really want to make sure that our students are mastering those grade level standards, because that's what's going to help them to be successful the year after, right? And getting ready for the next grade or college or career, depending upon what grade we're talking about. Again, we're seeing priority schools showing incremental improvement. We need to continue with acceleration, not just intervention, but acceleration, so that stretch growth is really important and it's a focus. We are following the same process in math, where we are doing our walkthroughs, we have our common planning time, we're looking at those common assessments, we're engaged in intervention, and our particular focus is in algebra readiness. So algebra readiness, as you know, begins in grade 4. And so we're looking at what is algebra readiness from grades 4 all the way through until the students enter into algebra 1. We are increasing the alignment between the diagnostic data and classroom instruction, as well as the planning. And we're beginning to accelerate learning in geometry, number, and operation domains through our targeted standards work at the grade level. And this is happening during small group. We are in the process of providing additional coaching through our different grants that we have with organizations such as Columbia University and Modern Classrooms on small group explicit instruction, because we found that that was an area of need where we were having small groups, but they weren't really targeted based upon the students' standards-based performance. And so really providing professional development and coaching around that is the next phase of our work. Grade 4 math, I pulled this out specifically so you would see how grade 4 was doing. Again, modest improvement year over year, with some increase in the students who are approaching grade level expectations. Foundational numeracy skills is a continued need, a continued area of focus, particularly in the areas of fraction, multiplication, division, and problem solving. And what we're seeing is a pretty big variability across classrooms. So we have a number of vacancies in our classrooms, and especially in the middle school and high school when we get into math, it is an area of high need. And so some of our classrooms have vacancies, and that is having an impact on student outcomes. So we're working very hard to recruit teachers, to provide training and get additional teachers certified. But I just wanted to name that continues in our high areas of need: math, special education, and science are continued needs. Wanted to provide you what this indicator looks like across our different demographic groups. So on the left-hand side, this is reading. On the left-hand side, you can see the different demographic groups. You can see the N, which means the number of students in that group. And then you can see the number of students at or above proficiency next to that, that number of students in that group. So I'll give you a minute to take a look at this chart. One of the areas that we are focused on heavily is our differently abled students. Many of our schools are entering into comprehensive needs status because of a limited growth in our differently abled students. So we're really monitoring that to make sure that we're moving up. And as of mid-year, we have increased our growth of students at or above in all categories, including that one, with the exception of a small N size in our American Indian or Alaskan Native.
Oh, it's not, it's incorrect here. Remember the,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There, when you look at the white students, we had a typo. It should say 52, not 82. So that's just an error.
yeah, yeah, and differently able students. Yeah, they go there too. Check. Yeah.
That's fine.
So we'll correct that slide and repost it.
ESA.
Differently.
EAS.
I just need to check it. I don't know. I knew the one, the typo for white 82 to 52. I have to just double check that if they're able to make that correction to you if there is one.
Mine is the mine's that one's
Yeah.
So it might be wrong up there, but I'm reading the correct information. Sorry. And then if you move to the next slide, we have the same chart but for math. We have an increase at or above in all categories with the exception of our white students in math. So again, the differently able students is something that we know that's leading our schools to not have 3 stars, and is something we're looking at to make sure that we are providing the programming and interventions for students with disabilities. And so just want to know that we are moving in the right direction, although it's still very low. So year over year, we are seeing modest improvement across most of our demographic groups in reading and math. Gains are visible among Hispanic, Latino, Black, African American, and multilingual learners and students with disabilities, although we need to increase those proficiency levels because the targets are still very low. And so our achievement gaps still are persisting, and so that's something that work in acceleration and stretch growth is critical in order to address that. And then I do want to talk too about, I know high school, our 9th grade and high school performance is something that we are not focused on in terms of school board goals, but I do want to mention that we're also seeing increases in ELA and numeracy on our 9th grade iReady mid-year assessments. So we're also seeing increases at the 9th grade level. iReady stops at 9th grade because after 9th grade, it's not a reliable assessment for students unless they are significantly below grade level. And so we do use it for some intervention work, but 9th grade is the last year that all students take that assessment. Our pathway program. So we'll be having some exciting news about some pathways that are opening, but I just wanted to remind us of our total number of programs this year, increased to 29, but next year we're increasing to 33 programs. And some of those programs include medical imaging, event design and production. That will be coming online next year. This year we have finance, dental, data science, AI, and pre-medical that have been approved by the state for us. So some exciting work coming on board with the secondary pathway progress. And as we know, the Central is in the process also of determining what CTE programs they want to enhance or expand. So there'll be more news coming toward the end of the year regarding CTE programs specifically to Central as well. It's really important not just that we have programs but that more students are engaged in those programs. And so our trajectory shows an almost 6% increase next year if we continue to be successful in encouraging our students to engage in the new pathways that are opening. So we have a wait list for some of our programs. We definitely had more students apply to our CTE programs than we had seats for this year. So increasing those opportunities is going to be important as more and more students want to engage in programs than we have seats for.
Question.
Yes.
Dylan, do you still have a cosmetology program at CCTI?
We do.
You do? Okay.
Yes, we do.
And I have something
If you look on
Dr. Dillon.
slide,
Dr. Dillon,
slide 17, it has all of our current programs. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna mention something quickly to the board that 100% of our students who were in CTE pathways last year who graduated, 100% of our students who were in programs graduated.
So did you see on slide 17 the list of all of our programs?
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then in the appendix, we just have some additional data that you might be interested in on your own time to go through. We just wanted to show you, for example, growth. We talked about growth, but we didn't go into growth. And on slide 24, you can see, for example, that last year, all of our students had typical growth. 48% of our students, I should say, had typical growth. We've increased that to 61% of our students having typical growth at the same time this year in math. And last year was 53% in reading and 65% in reading this year. So you can see not only are we increasing in proficiency, but we're also increasing in growth. And the number of students who have improved their placement toward proficiency from the start of the year to now. Last year at this time, it was 38%. This year at this time, it's 42% in math. And last year was 37% in reading, and now it's 41% in reading. So you can see, and the most significant increases are happening where we were having kind of some persistent stubbornness, which was our middle school. So if you can see math in the middle school, 50% had that typical growth last year and 71% this year. So there's been a lot of work happening at the middle school, 54% in, I'm sorry, that was reading, 54% in math and now 60%. So we are very excited about that. The teachers are working hard, the students are working hard, and they're growing.
I have the correction for that.
Chairwoman,
You might have explained this, but I missed it. Typical growth, how is that compared to proficiency? What does that mean?
So there's two sort of different things. You can have typical growth and grow a year, but if you start out not proficient, you're still not proficient the following year. What we really need in order to get to proficiency for somebody who starts off not proficient is stretch growth. So we have typical growth, and then we have stretch growth. Stretch growth means that you're growing more than a year in a year. Typical growth means you're growing a year in a year. So when I was talking to you on slide 24 about improved placement, that's the percentage of students that are actually moving from wherever they started up the ladder, right? So if they started, say at 2 years below, and that means that they moved to the next level. And so if you look at all students at this time right now, 42% of all students have improved their position for proficiency wherever they began.
Board Member Burnson?
Thank you, John. Could you go back to slide 9? I have a comment and a question.
Right, or you've been really busy.
Yep. Yes.
So I wanted to pay you a compliment. In grade 4, what I've noticed is not only are you increasing year over year from 24% to 26%, but if you look at the grade 3 scores from 24-25, which is 19%, those third graders last year are fourth graders this year.
Yeah.
So you're seeing a really nice trend from 19% last year to 27% this year, so almost a 50% growth. So I know you didn't notice, you didn't mention that, but I wanted to commend you on that. And so, it's nice to look at year over year.
Yeah.
It's also nice to look at when you see the
cohort.
2-year average, how the previous year is doing compared to the next year going forward. So I wanted to acknowledge that.
Yes, and so, I'm sorry that we didn't go into cohort data. I did want to talk to us when we're looking at fourth to fifth grade. We tend to have a decrease, a significant enough decrease in our student population, leaving the district for whatever reason in fifth grade. So it's our cohort data has been a challenge for us to analyze fourth to fifth grade. But absolutely, we are looking not only to see that grade 3 is increasing every year, but that the students who are in grade 3 are increasing when they get to grade 4. So that's cohort data. So if you look at 24 for any grade, and then you look at 25 for the next grade, that's our cohort, and you can see that our cohorts are increasing as well. But please do have caution when examining grades 4 moving into grade 5 for the reason of the change in student population.
Thanks. So that's the comment, now the question. So, and I know from my own analysis of RICAS data, there tends to be about a 25% drop off every year when you look at the iReady data of what percentage of students are proficient. And then when the RICAS data comes out, depending on the grade, it can be a few percentage points lower. Sometimes it can be as high as 25% lower than what you saw from the iReady data. How can you sort of explain the difference when I know that, we can be enthusiastic about mid-year data and it looks like things are going to go great. And then when we see the RICAS data months removed, the numbers often are not as high as what we're seeing when it comes to the progress monitoring data. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, there are a few things. This is why we switched to looking at proficiency on iReady, and instead of looking at growth. And when we're looking at this data up here, you might think to look at all of the green, the light green and the dark green. If you want a true correlation to where we are when we take our end of year iReady to our RICAS data, it would be dark green only. And so what we often see when people make presentations with iReady, on this chart, they combine the two. So light green has a significant potential to get to dark green by the end, as does yellow. But at the end of the year, it really is that dark green band, that percentage, that has the correlation. In iReady, there's a tool that actually tells us if we continue as we are right now, where we are likely to end on RICAS. And that is fairly close when we look at the past couple of years to where we have been. But again, that's that dark mid to end green. It's not all green. And so that's where you get that differential in what you might consider on grade level here as compared to RICAS. On grade level on RICAS is really solid green, not the light green.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's a great question.
I have a data clarification if you want me just to clarify that slide, that one question for differently abled students. Do you want me to do that now? Here, we're going to do a slide. Sorry, making you dizzy, right here. So right here, you see it says 25% is slide 12. I fixed it in the live slide.
Okay.
It should be 9. I apologize for that. This is manual entry onto the slide decks for data. So I'll go back and confirm the data points in both charts for demographic data. If anything changes other than the 25 to 9, I'll have
So
Dr.
it
Dillon
went
let you
from
know.
9%
To 12%.
to 12%.
Yeah.
So still an increase, but there was a typo in,
Yeah,
in
sorry
one of
about
the
that.
blocks.
My question is regarding multilingual students and students with disabilities. What are the strategies that are working, and then what are the strategies that the district is putting in place to try to move the market on those?
So there are a few. One, when we look at our multilingual learners over time, when our students are here for, and they reach level 5 or 4, they actually outperform our students who were never multilingual learners. So this multilingual learner data includes students who are here in math, like as soon as they arrive, and it also includes students who are here for only a year if they're taking the ELA, right? And so over time, the strategies that we have in place with our SCI coaching, with our teachers becoming certified, with our English language development, that data is showing that we are meeting and exceeding national averages in how the students are growing and performing. Okay, so I think it's important to know that this is just kind of a snapshot data, but when we look at data over time, it suggests that the strategies that we have in place for our multilingual learners are working. So just for that, but the strategies are all students who fall into that category receive an additional block of English language development in addition to their ELA or their English course. We also have multilingual and bilingual programs, which are great strategies for students who choose to go into those programs. We have coaching for our teachers who are not yet certified in ESL. And then we have provided stipends and incentives for more and more of our teachers to become ESL certified, so that they have a strong proficiency and grasp of the strategies needed for our multilingual learning. For our students with disabilities or differently abled students, we have been looking at, under our new executive director for special education, we've been looking at the models that we have had in Providence and comparing them to national models. And there have been some shifts in the programs. We are ensuring that every student who has an individual education plan and who is not on alternate assessment has opportunity and time within the general education course, so that they're getting more and more access to the core as their IEP indicates they are ready for it. We also are in the process of ensuring that the interventions that we have that are designed for students with individual education plans are working, and replacing those that are showing evidence that they are not. We are going to be bringing in an expert consultant this coming into next year on the development of goals in the IEPs. And we are also in the process of making sure that we are monitoring the students' IEPs, progress monitoring, in a way that is similar to the way that Branching Minds allows us to monitor students who are receiving interventions in the general education class with trend data and chart data, so that we're making really smart decisions about what's working and what's not for students.
Thank you.
Dr. Dillon, do you and your team still do instructional walks?
Yes, we do instructional walks. So we do them in a few different ways. Every quarter, the leadership team from Teaching and Learning does instructional walks with the transformation officer and the principal. We provide feedback based upon those walks. In addition, based upon the walks that the TOs and the principals are doing on a more frequent basis, we're often invited in to do additional walks or to do look-fors if the data is not looking like it needs to be, or if the principal wants feedback on a particular type of a situation. So they might have put in a new small group process, and they might say, can you come on in and see what our new small group process looks like? That type of thing. And then we're also, in addition to that, analyzing the data that's coming out of the walkthroughs that the schools are doing themselves, and then working with the transformation officers on additional supports or needs that come out of that.
Can you also explain the turnaround time for the feedback, which is extreme?
So our expectation is, and this is something that is a work in progress because it's not happening in all the schools, but our expectation is that teachers, just like students, get feedback within 24 hours, because we know in brain science, if you don't get feedback in 24 hours, it was like it didn't happen. And so that's our goal and our expectation, but it's honestly not consistent everywhere.
Can you, would you be able to walk me through a simplified way? Walk me through a day and a day of a student that is under the category of MLL or disabled
Yeah, so sure.
in a
So
simplified way.
okay, a student. Okay, I'll walk you through a student in middle school who is lower than a level 4 MLL. Students who are level 4 and above don't necessarily need this special piece that I'll talk about. So they would, a student who is MLL would go to their core classes. They would go to English, they would go to math, then they would go to science, and they would go to social studies. And then they would have a 5th block, which is their English language development block. So they would have those 5 classes, and then they would have an elective. That might be physical education, music, art. So then they would have their elective. So that's primarily their 6 classes. In addition, at the middle school, we have an advisory wing opportunity where students work with guidance on advisory issues, or they might be receiving some additional support in literacy or numeracy during that wing time. So that's a typical day in a student who is a level 3 or lower in our MLO program. The differently able students, there are so many different types. So we have alternate assessment type, and those students primarily stay with their small classroom for the majority of the day. They do go to an integrated elective art, music. They go to the lunchroom with their peers, but they typically don't go to the core classes with their peers. And then we have students who are 1 to 13, so some of their time is pull out, and they'll get instruction in small group, but then they will also have opportunity in integrated settings based upon their IEP. Then we have 1 to 26, which a teacher pushes in. And so, that's like the least restrictive. And so a special education teacher will push in and work with that student during the day, but for the rest of the time, they're with their peers and taking the same courses as their peers. We also have behavior intervention program. So students, depending upon their need, might be with their class all day long, or they might be integrated for a portion of the day. And then we have a behavior intervention program designed for students with social and emotional needs. And the same strategy is true. So they might be students who have high anxiety and high needs around social and emotional, whereas in the typical VIP, they might have a lot of behaviors, right? So that's the difference between those two.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other board members?
Two more questions.
Chairwoman?
You're pretty strict, but I know you had separated into meeting, met, on track, those 4 colors. My question is for the yellow color that it seems like most of these are on, I know where it says like they're on track to meet 50%. What is kind of your percentage, or what was your markers for the kind of yellow color that you were talking about? Sorry.
So, using the goals that we set with the school board for interns, is it likely that we will hit that percentage if we continue to improve from mid-year to end of year?
Okay, so it's, 'cause I know it's like 50% of schools are approaching on track. Is there sort of like, I guess I would wanted to know if it's like 60%.
Where are you seeing 50% of
Oh, you
schools?
she's done the key.
The key,
Okay, sorry.
that it said, the key says like, oh, you're on track to meet this goal, overall goal.
Okay, so that's approaching, that's orange for 50%. So on track means that the majority of schools are headed where our average will meet the intern. So,
I was just like thinking is like from 50 to 100 is a large range. Like, is it more, like, what are we thinking? Or when you're saying on track, is it because like there's 60% of schools, there's 55% of schools?
yeah, so if we're 50% in around that or less than that, then we would be orange right now. If we are much lower than that, if we were like 20% of schools, we'd be off track, right?
And this is not till the end of the year, this is 2030?
No, so we have the interns, which have our annual hopes, based upon our data. So you have the goal for 2030, but remember, I probably should have brought a copy, but for each of the goals, you had interns on where we would like the students to be by the end of each of the years on the way to 2030.
Okay, so this key is more aligned
To
to
that.
the answer.
Yes.
And then my other question is just seeing the data and seeing like such a drastic change in 7th grade. Just want to know like what did you implement to see that? What was the emphasis?
Right, so
It's like 10 and 13% drop
Yes.
in
So
30+ grade levels.
the major pieces that we did, we changed all of the middle schools so they were following teaming, and they all had that win block, which allowed us to work with the students. Not all of our schools were doing that last year, it was really big. And we wanted to provide that for all students. We also have one math program that's a little bit different, intervention, called New Classrooms. So in a couple of our middle schools, we had a grant, so they have that additional piece. But you can see it also went up in reading. So it wasn't just that, the primary thing across reading and math, that was the change, was the teaming, and the institution of the advisory block. Which also allows the teachers to have common planning time, which is really, really important. So common planning time and professional learning for teachers is really important time, and we had to figure out a way to provide that to our teachers. And so the advisory block allowed us to do that with more frequency at the middle schools than they had previously. I am going to be quite forthright, and I've told you prior to this, but our teachers want more professional development. We don't really have that in our calendar, and we really don't have that in our budget. So common planning time and the opportunity to work with teachers during that time is really critical and important to us.
And with the middle school, do you have any projected numbers once, because I know you said there was a transition, correct? Is there any projected numbers in which we projecting hopefully that we'll get, and we should always project, but we're projecting that we'll get some of our students that are in these, that is in the middle school out of the red?
So, yes, if we continue to work this way, the way that it's trending from beginning of year to middle of year suggests that more students are going to be out of the red in the middle school. The percentage varies by grade, but if you we can actually create a chart for you like we have at the end, which tells what students are advancing. So that percentage of students advancing are the percentage that are going to be moving up each level. And so the higher that percentage of advancing and the higher the percentage of stretch growth, the fewer students that will be in the red by the end of the year.
Dr. Wednesday?
And actually, I have one question. So the approach of teaming, right, is that exactly, I didn't quite catch exactly like how widespread that is currently, and is that a strategy that you plan on implementing more thoroughly within the schools? Are there barriers to doing that? Is there a limit to where you see that working in terms of in terms of grade range, et cetera?
So right now we have teaming across the board at our middle schools. And we are doing sort of modified teaming at our new K-8 schools. And some of our elementary schools, such as Messer, have opted to do teaming in the upper elementary grades of 4 and 5. So that's where we are right now. But right now, every middle school has teaming. One of the barriers to teaming is if you have, so every full class is about 26 students, right? And so a team is 4 groups of 26. So when you have a grade that has more than 4 groups of 26, you might have half of a team or a team and a half. And that can be tricky for their principals in terms of scheduling. So that is one of the things that we're trying to do as we're working on school placements and decisions in terms of staffing, is trying to get as close to pure teams as we can, but it's not always possible.
And Dr. Dillon, how long have we had teaming?
Do you know what it's been doing?
Last year was the first year.
So Green did it last year. The results there suggested that it was a strong, promising practice. And so this is our first year with it across the board. Messer has been doing it as well in grades 4 and 5.
Do we have it in the past?
No, I don't know.
I don't think we've had teaming in middle schools, and I don't know if we ever have, but definitely not in the recent past.
The middle schools were designed more like junior high schools, right? So yeah, this is teaming is a middle school model, and we hadn't had it before.
Any of the board members? Thank you so much, Dr. Dillon and Dr. Keegan.
Thank you.
We are going to move to items 6.2, RIDE facilities presentation. Hey Mario, how are you?
Yes, sir.
Please state your name for the record and then you can begin.
Excellent.
Need some help?
I think I'm good. I don't know if this works or not. Mario Carreño, Chief Operations Officer for RIDE. I am also a fellow school committee member for Lincoln Public Schools. I like bringing that up because I fully appreciate the amount of time and effort you are spending here. It is very difficult nationally to get people to actually want to be on school boards. So I would be remiss to not acknowledge and thank you for your public service and your dedication to Providence. It's getting harder and harder to find the people to do this work. So I also want to, during public comment, someone had mentioned the playground at Leviton. That is on the list, and I'm hoping that the building committee, after these comments, will entertain expediting that project perhaps sooner. It's scheduled for next summer, but again, these projects are fluid, and again, if there's a will and an appetite to move forward, I don't see there's any reason that can't be done soon. So that's some good news. The purpose of this presentation is really to highlight the transformation of Providence school buildings and what is possible when stakeholders at all levels work together. If we rewind back in like 2014, I remember meeting with the Providence School Building Committee. At the time, there were hundreds of millions of dollars in need, and the only thing that was discussed at that meeting was sprinklers, adding new sprinklers, $20 million to sprinklers. The bar could not be lower. And what a difference from 2014 to today and where we're headed. Like, it is night and day. And I think this is, in light of the agenda item of local control, there's no better way to take over something new and not have to deal with problems that are decades in the making. This slide has been shared, I think, for 4 or 5 years now. And again, the goal, by 2030, all PPS students will have access to new or existing buildings. You will notice on the slide, we have crossed off the word goal, because goal is aspirational, goal is theoretical, and we're no longer operating in theoretical constructs. We are now in reality. We are actually here because for the first time in recorded history, we have $1 billion available for Providence Public Schools. Let me run that back so it can resonate. $1 billion are available for Providence school facilities. So one of the reasons for this is to invite you next Tuesday. We are going to release a report that really looks at all the projects collectively. We've had a lot of events. I think in the fall, it seemed like there was a groundbreaking every week in Providence. There's all this work that's happening. And until you step back and look at it collectively, you can really understand the magnitude of those projects. And again, the two things that are critical to this plan is that you have the two ingredients that most districts don't have, right? You need an ambitious plan with vision and with the will to actually do the work, and that you have that ingredient. And money. And those two, for years, were never present here, and they're not present in many places. Very fortunate of what is to come.
Mario, what
Yes, sir.
time would that be? The location and.
Oh, yes, 11 a.m. at Dr. Joel Galvez High School, I apologize, on the 24th. Will be the release. You're all invited. We'll have hard copies. We also have it on the end with some positive news as well, that there's another piece to this event that I think you'll also be pleased with. But again, we don't get here by like working in silos. We have many of your members on the building committee, and many iterations of your members have been on there. You have a city council that's very supportive now that for years would turn a blind eye to projects. You have a mayor who's very supportive. You have a school board. You have RIDE, commissioner, Governor McKee. Like when everyone's all in, it's easy actually to get this done. That's not always the case. And again, I like just showing these pictures. I'm not going to beat up on the past, but again, that's not a prison in Cranston. That's not an abandoned office building. These are pictures we took at Mount Pleasant at Hope High School just a few years ago. It's unreasonable to expect kids to learn in schools like this. It's unreasonable to try to hold anyone accountable when this is what's being provided to them. This doesn't happen overnight. I think we're aware of that. This is decades of people turning a blind eye to the future of the city. And I think the positive thing is that's no longer the case. But the reason we show this and highlight this in the report is because you can't fully appreciate where you're going unless you understand where you've come from. As the superintendent mentioned in his opening line, in 2019, only 5% of Providence kids had access to new or like new schools. By far, one of the lowest in the state. And in just 11 years to flip that to the highest in the state, again, it's a testament to what's happening here. This chart does, I think, a good job at showcasing how everyone works together. The General Assembly and the governor have put together additional state aid packages to make this affordable for communities, including multiple school construction bonds, housing aid bonuses, school building authority capital fund. When you factor that in, over $900 million of the plan will be paid for by the state of Rhode Island and its taxpayers. Again, this takes an all-in approach to make this happen. You also have $90 million from the city of Providence and its voters. Again, one of the reasons this works, there's been 4 separate bonds in Providence, each approved by over 90%, the highest rates in the whole state. Again, when everyone's all in and everyone wants this, it's clear to make it work. I do want to stress the bottom bullet point, which I think is also unique of this plan, no local tax impact. You may have seen as recently as earlier this month, communities sometimes reject these bonds. Sometimes they're passed by razor thin margins because the impact per household can be $2,000, $3,000. And families are left to choose, do we worry about ourselves and making ends meet, or do we vote and approve the school bond? Thankfully, it wasn't an or proposition in Providence, it was an and. We can do both. This actually had 0 tax impact, which is great. Again, it was timed as bonds with lower reimbursement rates were coming off the books. New ones with higher reimbursement rates were in its place, which allows us to actually do this work without increasing tax levy for these projects. Again, that's a challenge that others face. We were able to eliminate that to not make this a contentious item. This is the before and after of the Narducci Learning Center. The reason we show this one is because this project in particular signified a different way to approach instruction here. For many years in Providence, the limited work that they did do was during the summer or worse during the school year with little regard to students. When you approach projects that way, you are going to do like windows, stairwells, really low level work that actually doesn't improve teaching and learning. By using swing space, we take the entire school out into a new facility. We assess their building, whether it's a complete rebuild or remodel or repair. that work continues and the whole school comes back to its location. At the conclusion of the sequencing, the Narducci Learning Center is available to become a permanent school. It's a great building if you haven't visited. I think for a lot of these, if you haven't gone, we can absolutely set up tours to any of the buildings. I highly recommend you see the new ones, and even visit some of them in construction, because it's impressive to see them along the way, especially if you had been into those buildings years before. What a difference some of them are. We toured last week, and it's night and day going to debate and some of these others, what's being offered. Another highlight of this plan is that for years, and whether it was urban legend or truth or a mix of both, that the saying was that money would only go to a certain part of the city, right? That was what was, we heard that from a lot of the community feedback. That's no longer the case. You actually will find projects throughout the city. In fact, there's a significant concentration of projects in the southern part of the city where most of the students and most of the need are, right? In this plan, money follows need, the way the plan should be designed, not money following political preferences and other desires that are still prevalent in other parts of our state and our country. As we look ahead, there are 7 projects in construction at the moment. One of them opens this spring, which will complete the Spaziano Pre-K campus. That'll be available September 1st for the students. It's going to be amazing. We did a walkthrough last week. A really, really transformative project. And again, you see the list of the other pre-Ks in Mount Pleasant High School, which are all on track for the 27-28 school year. Even if we look beyond that, here's the next batch of projects. All these projects already have city council approval, they have building committee approval, voter approval, and ride approval. The reason we haven't started these yet is because there's only so much swim space, right? There's not an abundance of swim space. So again, we have a sequencing that when the first 6 get done, those kids go to the new building, and then the other kids go to these. So again, we continue that approach. And again, this is like the equivalent of maybe 7 or 8 districts worth of work. Like what's happening here is unprecedented in state history, which is really, really exciting. In addition to the major bond funded projects, RIDE, the governor and the General Assembly have given tens of millions of dollars through the School Building Authority Capital Fund for specific programs. Through the Facility Opportunity Initiative, we've done the arts, where look all the instruments that were paid for. We have a food truck, which is now part of the PCTA. We have Get the Foam Out, which we'll talk about in a minute, and then the outdoor classrooms that are being provided throughout the district. Really exciting things. As Dr. Dillon mentioned in her presentation, there's over 20 new programs that have been added since 2020, and benefits of CT, like there's no debate any longer. I think that's been put to rest, that as kids participate more, they graduate more, they want to be part of the community. The Mount Pleasant Project is adding new programs, and there's going to be connections with both Rhode Island College and CCRI, including advanced manufacturing, robotics, pre-engineering, the opportunity to offer dual enrollment at both. So again, there's a really exciting project happening there. We have the Good Eats and Treats food truck, which I hope will be there next Tuesday. We also have, if I may plug, sir, May 16th in East Providence, we have our annual food truck roundup, where all the food trucks in the state, we have 15 compete for the Governor's Cup and the Commissioner's Belt. I'm hopeful that Providence will take home the title this year. I hope to see you there. We'll send formal invitations as soon as they're printed. But it's a really exciting day to see the talent of all these kids, not just in Providence, but
Can I add,
yes, sir.
now, those food trucks, amazing. Am I right or wrong, Corey? Superintendent. Oh my God, it was amazing. And definitely being joined by other districts across Rhode Island was like an amazing event. It was just so peaceful and relaxing. And I really do encourage, if you're not doing anything, to show up this May and look at not only the work that Providence is doing, but the good work happening across the state of Rhode Island as it pertains to CPE and the food truck. Like, oh my God, food was good. I love food. Oh my God. And who won last year, Mario?
So we have 2 awards. The savory dish was Westerly, and the sweet dish was East Providence. Because we have the food trucks keep growing, and to give it, we're also going to have one on presentation. Like I think that's a new award that we're rolling out, and then one for the best drink this year. So most have been making their drinks, so we keep like that's just another category for us to have. But come hungry, like they give you huge rations. Like it's outrageous how much food you got. We also work with the local food bank, so if any leftover food gets sent to them, everything gets eaten. Like it's a great time. Kids love it. They get so excited to be there. Like you get to see people from every town. We sold out last year. We're increasing capacity. I think the 1,500 this year. We're hoping to sell out again, but it's a really exciting time. Yeah, and if you like to eat, please come.
They say if you like to eat, go over there. I went hungry and I still couldn't get all the drinks. That's how much food they gave. Okay, and it was delicious, delicious.
Thank you. And then just a couple more slides and we'll turn it to questions. Environmental benefits. Through the Get the Foam Out grant, we have targeted the single-use styrofoam trays, which were prevalent in our schools. Providence schools were responsible for 1.5 million trays per year that were going to the landfill. The largest contributor in the state, again, you're the largest district, so I guess proportionally you're the most. That grant has now stopped the use of that. We are also composting and have enhanced recycling in many of your schools. We look at the data at Nathan Bishop, I looked at it earlier today. In addition to recycling and composting, they have the food share table. So perishable items that nobody wants, they put there, they have in a refrigerator. Families who want to come get it, they send it at the end of the week to the food bank. Year to date, they've salvaged, I think it's 3,700 pounds of food, which is the equivalent of 3,000 meals. That's just at one of your sites. I think if you magnify it, it's into the thousands and perhaps tens of thousands. So again, really good things are happening there. We have 26 outdoor classrooms, which will be opening September 1st throughout the district. Excited for that. That was part of the Learning Inside Out grant. All the new schools that have been built use electrical and mechanical systems, so no fossil fuels are being used. We have the bottle filling stations. And I think this one's actually really powerful, the last one. The Providence has won 7 national green ribbon awards, the most of any district in the entire Northeast, including the last 4 schools that opened, each won a national award. The schools we showed earlier, I hope every single one also wins one of these. I think we're on track. It's been a priority of others to make these buildings really environmentally friendly. The other piece that's not here is all of these projects are also under project labor agreements, meaning they use unionized labor. A lot of it, we track women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, local use. So we want to make sure that a lot of the money stays here in Providence because these projects create thousands of jobs, and we don't want these jobs to be going out of state. We want to try to prioritize the work right here in Providence. And now to end with some good news before we hand it over to questions. So as part of our Facility Opportunity Initiative, Providence is going to win $900,000. The top 3 projects we had applied for, which were a new public administration CT classroom at Central High School, updated science labs at Alvarez High School, and a new arts makerspace at Belcesto Middle School were all picked. At the event on the 24th, we will also do the formal presentation of the check-in of the awards to you. That's exciting. We're hoping that that work will get done as quickly as possible to keep the momentum going. And again, like the idea here is to set up this district to succeed. And I think this is a really good story that is no longer aspirational. It is now here before us. With that, Mr. President, I hand it over to any questions.
Absolutely. Right before we jump into questions, I'm a little jealous that all of the projects are taking place in their area and not in my area. But what I will say is that I do encourage board members to absolutely visit these facilities. I think the east side is the only side that hasn't actually started. I think they just have the auditorium and the Carter piece, I think. Yeah, but it's slowly coming together. But I will recommend, I think, right now, Classical, I was able to visit Classical a couple months back, and I'm like, what in the world has happened here? Amazing. William Debate. I had went to William Debate in 2022, I think, was it 2022? And then it was I might be getting the years wrong, but literally it was 2023 and the whole facility was just updated. So I'm like, what is going on? But there is literally amazing work taking place as it pertains to these school facilities. And I think us as board members really need to begin to go and see exactly how these facilities are looking, where our children and the kids that we represent, where they are actually being educated at. And I would say with these facilities that have already been done, they look so amazing. And also one thing I seen when I went to that visit with the governor was that the kids actually wanted to be in school, attendance was high, and they were in class learning. And I think that's the benefit of having new facilities for all of our schools. And I know that's the goal here. So I want to congratulate RIDE for the amazing work, the school department, the city. This is just amazing. And I just hope that all of us could, in fact, celebrate next Tuesday the report that's going to be coming out, but also begin to really get into some of these schools and see what's going on. And I know everyone is busy, got full-time jobs, but if we can spend at least 30 minutes to visit a school within the next couple of months, I think they'll be good. But I am jealous about Region 3 and all of the facilities done over there. Chairman Jones?
Yeah, more of a statement than a comment. I want to thank you for your presentation. I've had the honor to serve on the school buildings committee in my first year, and hoping to continue serving in this year as well. That committee is a well-oiled machine. You know, we get through our presentations incredibly well. We have, presentations from the folks, the architects, the project managers, to the people who are picking out the items in the classrooms, right? They have focus groups with the teachers, and students on, what chairs and furniture they want to put inside of the building. And I think, I told the president the moment I kind of got into this committee and started doing my community work that I think the biggest gap is really in perception. And we have a job to do to help people understand this isn't the same building that, you may have sent your kids to, 10 or 20 years ago. Particularly, I remember some voters that I had talked to told me how they started fundraising, 15 years ago to get paint in, some of the buildings and some of the rooms in classical, right? And it's just like, that was an incredible moment because, to be able to share to them the news on the improvements that we've seen across the district, they really didn't even believe me. And so I look forward to taking that offer up and getting in some of these buildings, but not only that, like putting together some content and showing the community where the buildings are and where we're going, and letting folks know that Providence is the district for them and their family. So thank you all for your hard work in making that happen. The superintendent, the district team, RIDE, and those folks in the school buildings committee. I know it's definitely not easy for those folks. You have the city council that's asking very critical questions. You have the school board that's asking very critical questions, and you have parents who are also asking, even more critical questions from, what colors the buildings will be to, what populations will be intersecting. So it's a tough job, and, they've been doing incredibly well in that work. It's one of the most proud things that have come across the work that I get to do on the school board, and, something that I'm 100% committed to seeing to the end. So thank you.
Board Member Granson?
Dr. Craney, thank you for your leadership. A comment and then a question. Also want to acknowledge that Central Falls High School will be opening up on Monday, and if you care about urban schools, you'll obviously care about Providence. You'll also care about what's happening in Central Falls, and I've been a part of that project for a long time, so we're very excited, not only for that work. So that's just another great example with your leadership. I was wondering if you could speak to how important the K-8 model was relative to being able to execute this vision relative to the $1 billion that was in play.
Yeah, no, it's an excellent question. And there's a few layers to it. So some of the early surveying families, like what is it that you desire? Many of them wanted middle school seats that were closer to their house. We had 26 elementary schools feeding into 8 middle schools, which are farther away from their houses. They wanted to be closer to siblings, right? With less transitions, you're more likely, if you're in a place for 9 years, you're more likely to be with your brother and sister. They like that approach. There are connections to the community. If you know the teachers for 8 years and you're in a single place, you tend to do better. We've done national research in that students who attend pre-Ks do better than those who attend standalone middle schools. If you look at many of the private schools, they've been doing this for years. Boston Public Schools actually eliminated their last middle school last year. They've already moved on to this. They do either K-8, K-6, or 7-12. It's like a combination with a traditional high school. There are benefits to that. The other benefit is also you lose a lot of students to schools of choice. And some of the natural exit points are between 5th and 6th grade. So if you can have a tool in place that allows them to stay in Providence for longer, they may not want to leave, they may want to stay together as part of the district. The same reason we're also adding pre-K, because that's another exit point. If a student comes in pre-K, they're more likely to stay in that school. So if you don't even offer that seat when the lottery opens, they might go somewhere else. So again, part of it is finding where the exit points are, the data that supports that they actually do better, and a combination of the feedback that we receive from families that it was a natural approach, and other districts around the region are doing the same. So it's really, Central Falls being one of them also with their new school pre-K. So it was a combination of those things pushed it in that direction.
Thank you. And then question, can you talk a little bit about what steps districts are being asked to take regarding asset protection? One thing to build all these buildings, but what are we doing to make sure that 10, 15, 20 years from now, we are not back in the same position that we were, back in a decade ago?
Excellent question. So one of the items that was not in the presentation, but will be in the report, in 2000, I want to say 21 or 22, the year escapes me, but one of the items that we got the city council to pass was a revolving fund, a capital revolving fund. Prior to that year, we looked back through historic records. Providence was the only district who never had any type of other funds other than a bond to do repairs. Meaning you were likely paying Airmark 100% to do repair when the state would have paid 80%. So switching that dynamic, working with the city, you now have, I think it's like $8 million in an account. As you do the work, you get between 80 and 90%, depending on what bonuses you get. But at least Providence is set up over the next 10 years to do, I believe, at least 40 million of work. If you do the calculation of that, the building committee has prioritized these projects. You're able to be forward-looking. Not everything's an emergency, which it's been like, that's a paradigm, which Central Falls, Lincoln, a lot of places were like that, which you have to be proactive. So at least the tools in place, at least here, many other communities across the state are also doing revolving funds and being more proactive, because you're right, we don't want to invest $1 billion here, $4 billion in other parts of the state, and then in 20 years have to go back to voters because everything fell apart. There's also state law now that requires 3% of your operating budget to actually maintain your facilities. The good news is the revolving fund equals that amount, so it's not like you are sacrificing money from your budget to meet this mandate from state law. It's actually been now solved through a separate approval.
Thank you. Dr. Williams?
I just had maybe a multi-part question. So I don't know if it's better to treat it as one giant question or a bunch of little ones. But I'll let you sort of be the judge of that. So when we talk about these being green urban buildings, and we have all electrical mechanical systems, no fossil fuels, I'm assuming like that involves like heat pumps and maybe some sort of a mixed heating system, different insulation standards, air infiltration, like is there passive solar and so are we putting solar panels on any of them? I'm sort of curious about all of that. And then what will that, does that in terms of the cost of maintenance, the cost of upkeep, the cost of heating, lighting, all that, how do these new buildings differ from our old ones, the ones that they were?
Yeah, two excellent questions. For the first one, it's a combination. We have geothermal, we have in some cases solar panels, it's looking at wind energy. It's a combination of energy sources. It's also designing buildings in a way that they need less. So it's not just using less, it's setting it up so you actually don't need it. As part of our process for approval through the school construction regulations, we actually require a cost benefit analysis to see if it's actually worth this effort. So we're not just forcing this if it doesn't make financial sense. In these cases, it ends up being, we look at this through a 50-year lens. We're not looking at it now. So in many cases, the upfront costs may be higher, but the long-term costs are low, and that's the approach. And we make everyone do this analysis. As long as they show that it's cheaper in the long haul, we do everything we can in our power to push in that direction. That's aside from any environmental benefits that exist. We're also, there's also a fiscal lens here. But we do require in-depth analysis. Each application that comes to us is like 2,000 pages, that's why you hire all these architects and engineers to do these analysis. But yes, we do a thorough review of those.
Thank you for the presentation, for coming here. As President Stevens said, I'm really excited because I get to see firsthand. I live down the street from the Spaziano building, and I just gave birth to my daughter, so I'm excited to have her going to that school. It's a 2-minute walk, and it's a dual language school, which is something that I've been a big advocate on. So I'm really excited for these projects. And I think something that President Stevens had touched on in his remarks earlier is kind of the data related to student achievement and being in these new schools. So are we going to see that any type of data from the district reflecting student achievement and how that is correlating over time. Might be in the report that you're showing, but I know it's easy to go to the community and not say only like, oh, you're getting a new building, but this is actually how the new building is going to affect student outcomes.
That's a great point, because a lot of times we focus on national research. Like some of these buildings are only a year old, so the data is trickling in. I think as we move forward, this is a great point to capture, perhaps in future presentations from Dr. Bill and our superintendent. Like, that should be something that we request, is seeing the performance of the new buildings called out as compared to the others, and then you can see the pro and before and after. So I think like we're seeing it now for the schools that have been around for a little bit. We have that data in other parts of the state. The one fly in the ointment is COVID. So if we look at some schools that were built in 1819, all of a sudden kids didn't go to school and test scores dropped. Was it because the building is like that now is beyond us. So I think we are starting to see this connection. That we have historic data nationally, which shows it that when all things are equal, students who learn in new buildings do up to 20% better on standardized tests. Like, it's there when everything is normalized. But I think it's a great point that as we move forward, it would be great to show not just at the local meetings, but even here to the community, the school boards, that the investment is not just to have a building it's nice to look at, it's actually working for the kids. I think that's a great point.
Follow. Given how much investment has been made in high schools, parallel to the surge in CTE pathway programs, how concerned should we be that now that a lot of these renovations have been done, that we won't be able to accommodate the different types of CTE pathways that the district might be interested in putting into a particular school? Yeah, so if you want to do a certain type of CTE program, but this school doesn't really have the space or the configuration in order to accommodate a particular CTE pathway. Have you seen that in other places? Should we be concerned about that?
Not yet. So I think from the chart, like a few years ago, you had so little of those programs that we weren't running into that scenario. I think when you get to 33 programs, which is a great issue, that perhaps in the future you might reevaluate enrollments. You may look at the high wage, high growth ones. That's a big emphasis. You want to encourage students to go where the jobs are going to be, and that might be a decision that the board takes, whether you have to reallocate space or create new. But at least to date, there is enough capacity just because of where the bar was, that we're years from even having to answer that question, because you have ample space to build all these programs, including we're doing $110 million renovation in Mount Pleasant, which is going to have even more seating spaces. So I think 33 offerings might be the top one in the state once these are there. And again, it's something to monitor. If there's so much growth, that's a good problem. We'll address it at that point in time. But there is ample capacity at the time. Space has not been a barrier to building new programs.
Right. Thank you.
I just have a clarifying question. You say looking ahead 29 to 30, is that the new projects for like new schools or like renovations for high schools and Lancaster Middle School and Nathaniel Green? That's the expectation for the.
Yeah, those are the major ones. So with the revolving fund, we have projects that are not on this list. This includes the smaller scale things. You have buildings, I want to say 7 or 8 of them that were built this century, right, that historically get forgotten, and 30 years from now, you would be looking at replacing them. What we're doing, and to Mr. Brandt's point, is to invest in those now, and let's add the playground, let's fix the systems, let's upgrade the libraries. Alvarez is only 22 years old. Well, we're going to do this in science labs now. The idea is to keep upgrading them, because the cheapest time to make those repairs is now. What everyone usually does is they buildings 30 years old, we'll deal with it in 50 more years, and all of a sudden we've seen this movie. It's not a good movie. So those were just the major projects. There's a lot of other work that wasn't displayed here. I try to simplify this. I don't want to flood you with slides. I don't like sitting in that seat for more than an hour. I don't want to take your time on that. But yeah, there's a whole spreadsheet of other work that's occurring.
I also want the board to understand it's not just about the facilities, as you heard, it's also making sure that we're developing for students' needs. But that's why the designs the way they are. So when we speak about some of the designs, it's the facilities. Some walls are actually removed, so one room becomes 2 rooms. The walls, it's not like we were not allowed to write on our tables on the walls, but now because you have white walls, you can write on the walls. You have, you know, whiteboard on the table, you can do that. So those are the kind of things we have to also look at, you know, as we start to develop it. But then there's a second layer to that. The second layer is how are teachers using that facility to teach? That means now we have to start doing professional development for teachers on how to teach in those environments, in that space, because it's no longer my room, it's our room. It's no longer a hallway. That hallway can convert into a hallway, it can convert to a learning center. Then you have pull-out rooms. So all that you take into account when we start thinking about the development. That's why at the school building committee, we have a lot of questions. And I, you know, one of the things that I'm always asking, where's the green space? Where's that going? Because I also hear about green space. So it's really important to think it's not just one layer, this is multi-layers that goes into this.
I heard you, thank you for being here. Thank you for keeping the slides easy and quick. I heard you mention the public comment about Leviton Playground. Would it be helpful for myself to send an email about it, or are you on it? Like, are you on top of that? Are you gonna push it?
I would do both. I think it's good to see that, like, there's a lot of projects that in needs here. I think it would be useful to help elevate sometimes when we're deciding between, you know, a list of projects like this and a resource like this, unless you hear it, it's not there. So it would be both. I think let's both send emails to the chair, to superintendent, to the committee. I think the next meeting is, I think that'd be next week. So I would elevate that one, because playgrounds, the nice thing is that also gets community use, not just the school use. So like, that one should be elevated because you get support from others. You may look at, if you haven't done so already, I believe, only if this happened for another school, the city council also has grants for their wards, and they have given their $200,000 grants to help the playground. I'm not sure who the representative for that ward is, but like, that might help, and then that can get reimbursement. Like, there's a synergy here that hasn't been tapped into that I think is worth looking into. And playgrounds, again, are for everyone. And I don't see any reason why that shouldn't be passed.
Any other questions by both?
Would I be emailing you or? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Also, for school visits, do you want us to go through the superintendent to reach all of you as well?
Yeah, let's do that, and then I'm happy to join, like, we can set up, but yeah, let's, whatever, you can email both of us. I'm happy to join you at all the tours, at some of the tours, at your pleasure, we'll do that. But yeah, absolutely, we're open, and this is something really to highlight and to showcase. I highly recommend you see all of them.
You have something, Dr.?
I was just gonna say that in the, you know, board, if there ever is stuff you think we might find interesting, but we're not necessarily gonna sit through it, most of us aren't afraid about doing our homework either. If you send it in advance, we can like go through it, make sure that, you know, it's always interesting to get other people's information. So I appreciate that, and thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Mario. Appreciate you.
Thank you, everyone. Great night.
I would like to move to item 7.1, adjourn meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion's been made by Secretary Font. Do I have a second? Second's been made by Chairman Jones. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Any abstentions? Motion passes. We adjourn.